Welcome to the stream tonight. How is everyone doing tonight on this Tuesday evening? It's so good to have you all here. Welcome to a special edition of On the Pen, a On the Pen live stream where we're going to talk about an interesting email that we received tonight from later this evening from the Alliance for Pharmacy Compounding. Now, I'm just going to take a moment and let you all know that we actually had an interview with the CEO of the Alliance for Pharmacy Compounding, Mr. Scott Bruner. Scott Bruner was on an On the Pen episode probably about a month ago in the second part of a three-part series that we still have yet to bring you that third part. I'm hoping to make an announcement on that in the coming days. Hopefully this Thursday on Thursday Night Live, I'll be able to give you an update there. And so Mr. Scott Bruner sat down with OTP, gave us some really good insight into what they're doing there at the Alliance for Pharmacy Compounding. But I got an email that they sent out to all their folks in the press, and we've got an article up at OnThePen.com that I would love you to check out. You can check that out by following the link in the description. While you're there, sign up for email alerts. It's actually very easy to do that now. If you scroll to the bottom of every page there, it's just right there. Boom, boom, boom. First name, last name, email, subscribe, and then you'll be on our email list so that you can get the weekly wrap-ups. If there's breaking pertinent news to the community, we'll always drop it in a timely fashion there. So check it out. But I wanted to talk to you tonight about specifically the document that they sent and what we covered in this article. And it was all a response to Novo Nordisk basically petitioning the FDA to have semaglutide added to their demonstrably difficult to compound list. So to catch everyone up, both Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly are coming at the compound versions of their medications to shut them out. And they're trying to do it from two different angles. Before we get into what those are, if you would hit the like, hit the bell, and hit the subscribe notification. It's super important that you hit the bell notification if you've been around for a while. The bell notification is going to send you an alert when we go live or when we schedule a live stream. So that way you know when we upload and all that. So you can join us right at the start of a live stream. But if you haven't been here before and you're new here, hit the subscribe button because we're pushing to get to 15,000 subscribers. And then we are going to actually do a little bit of a giveaway. We did a few of these earlier this week. This is a On the Pen package that's all ready to go. There is a bottle of Can't Wait and a couple of nifty gifties from On the Pen in there. Put the gift emoji in the comments after this video posts, and you'll be entered into just a random drawing where we'll choose one lucky person to get this in the mail. So you'll just have to stay tuned to the comments of this video. I'll comment and let you know to send an email to OnThePen, Dave at OnThePen.com, and we'll give one bottle of Can't Wait and some nifty gifties from On the Pen away. So drop the gift, the little gift package emoji. You guys can put that in the chat right now if you want, but you got to go back and post it once the stream is ended and you go back and comment on the video. So they're attacking compounds from two different angles. The first angle is basically both Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly declared that their medications are no longer in shortage, that they're both commercially available. So what they're saying is that pharmacies have an adequate supply, or their warehouses that they get stocked from have an adequate supply of all of their incretin products. And so basically what sets off from that point on is the FDA has to determine, yeah, we agree with you, or no, we don't. In the case of tirzepatide, Mounjaro, and Zepbound, they did agree. In the case of Ozempic and Wegovy, we're still waiting. And of course, as we covered on the podcast today, and as we've covered exclusively, not exclusively, but explicitly on OnThePen.com and all of our videos here, there's a battle brewing right now between the Outsourcing Facilities Association and the FDA in court. And so that's why there's kind of been a stay, and we've continued to have these even after that December 2nd date, which was yesterday, which was supposed to be the cutoff for all compound tirzepatide. The court case has delayed that. But in the meantime, both Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly have been coming at this from another angle, leveraging the demonstrably difficult to compound list. And the demonstrably difficult to compound list is basically a list of medications that the FDA holds that basically say that these medications cannot be compounded. There can be no compounded versions of these, regardless of shortage, regardless of anything else. There's no compounded versions allowed of these medications. And both Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly have petitioned the FDA in the last couple of months to have their medicines added to this. Now, this is interesting for a number of reasons. I think the most interesting reason is that they didn't immediately request that of the FDA when they rolled these medicines out. Only after compounding has exploded and become a whole sub-economy for obesity medicine and type 2 diabetes medicine did they actually care about it. And so I think that's your first hint as to whether these are really difficult to compound or not. But the APC issued a response to the FDA, and they made basically 7 key arguments. And I just want to break those down for us tonight. Again, my breakdown of this is available at OnThePen.com. Please sign up for email alerts while you're there. We're never quite sure how well received our message is going to be by the platforms, especially when we start talking about, like today, we're talking about the American Diabetes Association and things like that. We just want to make sure that we always stay connected with you through the email stuff, because we'll always have the email stuff. So essentially what we have here are 7 basically points that they make in this document. And if you want to read it for yourself, the document itself is also a link to it is in that article. So the first thing is just the timing. The fact that Novo Nordisk waited over 2.5 years after semaglutide's inclusion on the FDA shortage list to file this request raises questions about Novo Nordisk's intent, which the Alliance for Pharmacy Compounding suggests might be an opportunistic move rather than one motivated by safety concerns. Kind of to the point that I was just making, why not immediately? Why not immediately when the drug comes out? Like, hey, by the way, there shouldn't be any compounding of this because it's too difficult to compound. Only after 2 years, right? The second part is the argument of specifically with semaglutide. So semaglutide, the branded versions, I have a Wegovy pen somewhere around here. So Wegovy is the obesity management version of semaglutide, and Ozempic is the type 2 diabetes version of semaglutide. And the semaglutide that is made by Novo Nordisk uses a process called a recombinant process. Basically, they take yeast, right? They take yeast and they derive the proteins from the yeast that constitute semaglutide, right? So the APC is saying, Novo Nordisk has come out and basically said, since compound versions of API use a synthetic process, in other words, they're using a chemical process to make semaglutide, that it makes it more dangerous for patients. And the APC actually comes back and says that the high level of precision involved in the synthetic process is favorable to the impurity profiles of the medicine. And actually, they argue that the synthetic APIs avoid host cell impurities that are found in the recombinant yeast versions made by the FDA, and that all of the synthetic versions actually meet the standards for FDA's quality. And so they're making the argument that while the process by which the protein is made is different, it's arguably safer. And something that is worth noting, tirzepatide, which is the active ingredient in Mounjaro and Zepbound, tirzepatide is actually made via a synthetic process as well. So obviously, Eli Lilly has taken a different approach to synthesizing their protein in tirzepatide. by using a synthetic process. So that was a huge argument that that Novo Nordisk laid out in their demonstrably difficult to compound complaint to the or statement to the FDA. Again, we did an article on OnThePen about this, and so you can check that out in on the website if you'd like, and get more detail behind that. But this was a huge argument that they made, was the recombinant versus the synthetic process. Now, the third argument is on the FDA's existing review. Synthetic semaglutide APIs have been reviewed and approved by the FDA for generic drugs, which actually undermines Novo Nordisk's entire argument that synthetic APIs are inherently inferior or inadequately evaluated. Again, that sort of goes back to what we were talking about with Eli Lilly actually using a synthetic process to manufacture tirzepatide. Some may argue, many do, that it's actually superior. One of the things that we highlighted in a live stream that we did earlier here on YouTube was the fact that there are over the Alliance for Pharmacy Compounding, in a letter to the FDA, mentioned that there were 80 million prescriptions filled for compounded semaglutide estimated last year. So 80 million, that doesn't necessarily mean 80 million people. I think I said that in the podcast, and it was a slip of the tongue. I meant to say 80 million prescriptions. That's not 80 million people. We laid that out in an article at OnThePen a couple of weeks ago. It's probably somewhere along the lines of 6.6 million people, roughly, if you do the math, because one prescription for 1 month for one person. So when you boil that math down, it gets to about 6.6 million people, roughly. But 6.6 million people. Imagine if there was something inherently wrong or problematic about the way that the compounded semaglutide is made. I think we'd know about it. I think we'd know about it by now. And also well, I don't want to jump the gun here. We'll continue on here. The 4 is the delivery mechanism. So the APC disputes the claim that Novo Nordisk makes that vials and pre-filled syringes are unreliable. They point out the inconsistency in Novo Nordisk's position, given that Novo Nordisk has actually announced a shift towards vial and syringes for all of their insulin products. Now, here's the funny thing. If there is something inherently problematic about offering vials of medication for these GLP-1s, Novo Nordisk moving all their insulin products to vials and syringes, there's a huge risk with improper dosing of insulin, to the point where you could have fatalities if there is too much insulin taken in. So if there's an inherent problem with that, it's definitely slaps in the face of some of the decisions that Novo Nordisk themselves have made for their branded medication. I see Melissa dropped a fake news emoji in the chat. That was one of the most aptly timed fake news emojis that I've seen in the existence of the emoji. Number 5 is the compounding complexity. So the APC asserts that the process that's involved in compounding semaglutide are standard for pharmaceutical professionals and not demonstrably difficult. Again, 80 million scripts for semaglutide compound last year. I don't think it's too complicated. The argument that compounded product lacks consistent bioavailability is dismissed as speculative and unsupported by the evidence. Again, 6 million people plus on this compounded semaglutide probably beg to differ that it's not an efficacious alternative to the branded medications. Number 6 would be the adverse events data. And this is where I did not want to jump the gun here, but I will just jump in here and ask, if you're watching on X, to retweet this. If you're watching this on any of the social media platforms, please give this a like and a share. That really helps the message of what we're trying to do here at OnThePen get out. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you, because YouTube is my home base, and we're pushing to 15,000 subscribers on YouTube. So please hit that sub button if you're not already subscribed. But the adverse event reported for compounded semaglutide are compared to those by Novo Nordisk's FDA-approved products, highlighting that the latter have far higher reported incidence. The APC notes that the FAERS data alone cannot establish causation or indicate an elevated safety risk. I think I read somewhere over, well, we did an article at onthepen.com just a couple of weeks ago on this. Thousands and thousands of FAERS reports for semaglutide, the branded products. So I don't know how Novo Nordisk somehow exempts themselves from the the FAERS database and the reports on the branded versions of their products. Number 7 would be the motivation behind the request. So the APC suggests that Novo Nordisk's moves might be an effort to eliminate competition from compounders, which represents as rivals rather than providers of complementary patient access. Now, this is where I really agree wholeheartedly with the APC, right? And I don't always agree with the APC or the OFA, nor do I always agree with the pharmaceutical companies or always disagree with them. I try to be a neutral party and just advocate for patient access, along with all of the nuance that goes with that, with access, but not at the expense of undermining drug development and innovation. So what I think is going on here, and what I think is interesting, is that compound pharmacies have been created by the FDA to serve as a backstop to offer medication when the branded, the companies that hold the patents, the branded patents, lack the ability to meet market demand when there are shortages. And there are real shortages of these medications going on. And just because the companies all of a sudden decide to say so, to say that they're not in shortage, does not make it so. And so we need to advocate for more transparency in this process. Of course we do. We've got the petition up at policiesforthepeople.com. I'll try to remember to go back and link that in the description of this video. That's what we're advocating for here. But I think they make a great point when they bring the point up that Novo Nordisk is saying they're eliminating competition, but this isn't about competition. This is about patient access in the face of unprecedented demand and shortages. And Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly both, and I feel like a broken record with how often I say this, but Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk have both told us repeatedly that they cannot meet demand. There's 100 million people living with the disease of obesity in this country, and they just lack the ability to meet demand. So that's what we got. I hope that you'll check the article out at OnThePen.com, linked in the description of this video. I hope you'll share it somewhere. I hope that while you're there checking that article out, you'll sign up for email alerts if you have not already. But that's the update. Really appreciate the APC for including OnThePen in this release to members of the media. I know that Mr. Bruner is doing everything that he can to advocate for transparency in this process. He himself, I think, has shot pretty straight with this whole thing, saying, hey, these therapies, these compound therapies weren't ever meant to be a long-term solution, but they are a backstop, and they ought to be allowed to continue as a backstop for the medications that are in shortage. So with that, I will say thank you for joining us on this special live stream. Hit that thumbs up button before we go, and then to be entered in the random giveaway for the Can't Wait and the Nifty Gifties here. Of course, Can't Wait is the peptide that I've been taking for the last almost 2 months. Really great from Integrated Peptides. The link is in the description of the video here. It is DNF10. It is actually something that works on ghrelin, so it's a different pathway. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. I take a couple of these in the morning, and it really helps me. So I hope that it helps you the same way that it has helped me. And so somebody will be the winner of that. Again, just drop the gift emoji in the chat after this thing goes live here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what we do at On The Pen. Until Thursday, can't wait to do it again. Have a great evening, and thank you for being here. Appreciate y'all.